Today, our special guest is CJ Hayden. Did I pronounce it well, CJ?
You
Yours.
did.
Yeah. So I want to tell you a story, CJ. First, thank you for accepting our invitation to join, to be a guest on our podcast, Surove Strasti. And thanks to Borna for contacting you. You know, you've been on my list for 2.5 years since we began recording and
Wow.
podcasting in Croatia. Because in 2014, I've read your book.
Amazing.
Your first book. I think it's your first book, Get Clients Now.
Yes.
So it was the year when I was like trying to find anything I can to help me grow my business. And I got really amazed on how many things did I do wrong for like first 8 years in my coaching and training business. So your book is really a great resource, and I'm delighted I have you here as a guest so we can talk about the stuff you're good at and the stuff you help others go to the next level.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the invitation. And although I've done many podcast interviews, I think this is the first one in your part of the world.
Really? You never had a podcast episode in Europe or?
Oh, definitely not in Croatia.
I believe so. I believe so. CJ, the stuff I didn't know about you, I've only read your book, but the stuff I didn't know about you before Borna contacted you, you had a really passionate and interesting life. You left your formal education, you left your high school at the age of 15. Can you please give us like the intro of who is CJ and how did you become a famous book author and how did you become a famous trainer and coach?
Well, it certainly is an unusual sort of background for someone who does what I do. So indeed, I did drop out of high school and leave home when I was 15 years old, and I never went back. I've lived on my own ever since. So as you can imagine, the first several years were difficult.
Mm.
I had to, in the very beginning, figure out how to eat and sleep, and then eventually how to find work.
Mm-hmm.
And without a high school background or any connections.
Yeah.
And in fact, I had even crossed a border, so I was no longer in the United States, I was in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't even legal to work. Talk about a number of obstacles to overcome. But I did find a job in a warehouse and worked for a minimum wage, and then eventually got promoted and got a better job and earned a little bit more. And after several years, when I was of age, when I was 18, I returned to the United States, and I decided that I needed to get a high school diploma, which I did, and then to go to university, which I did. And because I had no money, I did that working full-time during the day and going to school at night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it took about
Oh.
10 years. So I am very skilled in both persistence and consistency, which are two things that I teach people about business and marketing. You don't necessarily have to be brilliant. You don't necessarily have to have connections. You don't necessarily have to come from a good background. You can start with, like I did, literally nothing,
Mm.
and make your way in the world if what you do is you pay attention to what's going on around you and learn what the rules are that you need to follow in order to be successful in a particular area. And I think all of those things that I learned as a homeless teenager, I definitely applied to becoming successful in business and
Yeah.
teaching other people to be
Yeah.
successful in business.
That's a really fantastic story about personal transformation. I believe you had to change a lot of your a lot of your habits, a lot of your beliefs to get out from the streets. So
Most definitely.
what was the trigger to like go back to high school?
Uh, it was that I couldn't get good jobs. I couldn't
Mm,
get decent pay unless I had more education and more training.
mm,
It was clear that if what I continued to do was things like work in warehouses or
mm,
wait on tables or run a cash register somewhere, that would be my life. That
mm-hmm.
I would never have anything more than
Yeah.
that. And if I wanted more than that, I was going to have to do it on my own. Nobody was going to give that to
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yeah.
And I hadn't had as a child much in the way of people who believed in me. And so it didn't take much to find someone who believed in me to give me just a little bit of inspiration to go to the next step. And when I decided I wanted to get a high school diploma,
Mm,
I did it by taking examinations.
mm-hmm.
And after I took the examinations to pass and get my high school equivalency certificate, the woman who evaluated my scores said to me, "You have very good scores. We don't usually see this here. You should go to college." And
Mm,
I said to her, "How could I go to college? I have no money.
mm-hmm.
I don't have a diploma. All I have is this little certificate." And she said, "You
Yeah.
could
How
go
old were you?
to,"
Sorry, how old were
I
you
was
back then?
I was 19 by then.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I was 19, and she said, "You can go to a community college.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to a local college and you can earn credits there and you can start your education there. And if you do well there, you can continue on and go to a true university, a four-year college. And community college is comparatively very, very affordable. And some places it can even be free.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I decided to do, with just that little bit of encouragement from this complete stranger
Mm-hmm.
who said, "Oh, well, again, these are the rules that you
Yeah.
need to follow. If you follow these rules, these are the
Yeah.
steps, then you can do this thing that otherwise seems impossible."
Yeah, I just had like a few days ago had a conversation with a friend of mine, and we've spoken on the topic of this encouragement. So I was thinking,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you have a family that's like very supportive, it's not like the guarantee of success. But if you find yourself in a situation when practically no one is supportive towards you, one little advice, or a person that trusts in you, that believes in you, can like light this fire in a person that didn't have that background in their family, right? Would you agree?
That's right. Yeah, just one person can make a huge difference.
Yeah. um I've also read, CJ, that you changed like 50 or more jobs till you were 30. What was the most I don't know, interesting job you did, or like awkward job you did? I've
There
read
were
you were a
quite a
programmer,
few.
that you were like the professor of geodesia or something like that. That's like that's not like the same direction at all. At least it's
No,
not
it
in
isn't.
Croatia.
It isn't the same direction at all. And what happened was I was looking for, okay, what is the fastest path to getting where I need to be?
Mm,
And I looked around and I said, becoming a computer programmer is actually something that I can do without a four-year degree if I have the technical skills, without a university degree. I can learn the technical skills, and then those jobs pay well and there's always demand.
Mhm.
And I think that this is something that I could learn to do. So I looked for a job in a place that employed programmers, but that would take me in at an entry level.
Mhm.
So I actually got a job as a bank teller because I'd worked as a cashier.
Mhm.
So I knew how to run a cash register. I thought, how different can it be? Right. And so I became a bank teller for a bank that also employed computer programmers. And I went to school at night and I learned the skills, and
Wow.
then I got transferred. So once I'd done that and realized that people always say, oh, if you don't have a university degree, you can't do anything. That's actually not true. It's simply that you need to find the things that you can do without a degree.
Mhm.
So then I started looking around for, okay, well, now that I have a job and I have a paycheck and I have a skill that I can go anywhere with, what do I really want to do? And I was interested in science. So computer science wasn't quite it. I was interested in the sciences, and I thought that I had an interest in astronomy. So I started taking astronomy classes,
Wow.
and then I discovered geology. And I was told that, well, you can combine astronomy and geology and planetary geology.
Wow.
And I
That's
said, oh, that's interesting. Let me study that. And all the while I was working during the day. And finally, I got an opportunity to get a job as a planetary geologist. And I still didn't have a university degree.
wow, that's an amazing story. I wanted to ask you, how did you get to motivate yourself? Like, I think something rings a bell that someone from the Shark Tank mentioned, or probably Dragon's Den, the other versions of Shark Tank in Europe. Don't follow your dream, follow the green. So when you decided to become a computer programmer, were you passionate about it, or were you following the green?
It's an interesting question because the money in and of itself was not a motivation.
Mhm.
What was a motivation was earning a certain level of self-respect and stability.
Mhm.
So if you work in a restaurant, if you work behind a cash register, people don't respect you.
And you
They
have
look
the
down on
experience to
you.
confirm that, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, they don't treat you well. And I wanted to be treated better.
Hmm.
And I also wanted to be able to do things that it looked to me like other people got to do. Like, oh, I don't know, take a vacation. Maybe that would be nice to be able to take a vacation sometime and to live in a place that I didn't have to share with 3 roommates in order to be able
Hmm.
to afford it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I want to be wealthy, right? I don't want
But
to
your
have a,
yeah, but your first trigger was dissatisfaction. It was frustration, right?
yeah, I wanted respect and I wanted stability
uh
in my
Yeah,
life.
yeah. I understand. I understand, and I'm really glad you're the one of probably the first trainers ever and first coaches ever. You become a trainer in 1978, right? And how
Yes.
did you find that niche? How did you find that passion, CJ? So, what happened before you find that niche and your interest in that niche?
Well, I think there's a lot of truth to the thing that people say. The first thing that you wanted to do when you were a kid carries along through your whole life. It just doesn't always look the same later on. So if you'd asked me when I was 8 years old, what do you want to do? I would have said, I want to teach
Hmm.
and I want to write because I loved to read. And the idea of writing books was just very appealing to me.
Did you have
So
some
when I
role
was,
models? Right. Did you
No,
have some role models back then? No.
I did not. I had no role models like that, but I did have a desire to be involved in learning and helping people learn.
Hmm. So no real or like no real role model, not like a movie role model, not a book role model, anything. You just felt that how do I say it, like a vocation. You felt that call.
I did. It was like a call, and I
Yeah.
think that the fact that clearly, if you run away from your home when you're 15, you're not a very happy kid.
Hmm.
So for me, my escape was into books.
Hmm. Hmm.
I read a lot. I read all of the time, and the idea of being able to give that to other people, to write things that other people would then read, that would give them the pleasure that it gave me, was very, very appealing. And I think the teaching thing was just a very natural outgrowth of that. I can remember as a small child reading the encyclopedia to my stuffed animals. That for me was fun. I
Yeah.
would play by myself with my toys, and I would read to them out of the encyclopedia.
Hmm.
So that carried over into my adult life, and it made me desire to help learn. And that was how I very first found myself doing training. Even though I myself had just learned things, I then wanted to turn around and share those things I'd learned
Hmm.
with other people. And I found opportunities very early on in my IT career
Hmm.
to train and to teach. So I taught users how to use the systems that I was programming for them, for example.
Yeah. So the first training you did was like you taught programmers, if I understood it well.
I
So
taught users,
yeah,
actually,
yeah.
the users
Okay.
of the systems
Users.
rather
Sorry,
than other
sorry.
programmers.
So when did you decided to go into the niche of coaching?
So there were a lot of years between those two
Hmm.
things. And what happened
1992.
was,
Yeah, it was
that's
1990.
right,
Sorry.
I eventually became a consultant.
Hmm.
And that was because I really liked the ability to work project by project instead of being locked into one position. Because I'm the lifelong learner that I am, it gave me opportunities to always be learning and doing new
Hmm.
things. So I was working as a consultant, and in order to network to get clients, I spent time with my colleagues who were consultants, and they started to ask me questions about how I got clients and
Hmm.
questions about being a consultant. And so I found that I actually enjoyed working with my colleagues even more than I did working with the clients who at that point were paying the bills.
Hmm.
And that was when I made the transition from being a consultant to corporations to becoming a coach to little tiny businesses, in order,
Hmm.
in other words, one person businesses like other consultants.
Yeah. But how did you design your first program? I think it was 7 years before you wrote your book. In 1992, you started doing the coaching, and in the 1999 or 98, you wrote your book. How did you design your business? Where did you got the resources? You know, I remember when I started in business, I worked under a license, but also had trouble with finding my clients. You had two problems at the beginning, if I got it right. First, designing your program, defining your niche, and getting your clients. Did I miss
That's right.
something?
No, that's very true.
Hmm.
And I had no idea when I first started that I was going to end up becoming some sort of sales and marketing expert.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
really didn't know that that was where I was headed. I was helping people with all of the aspects of setting up
Like
a business.
what was the most common problem your clients had at the beginning? Sorry for the interruption.
No interruption. That's actually where Get Clients Now came from. I thought I was going to be helping them with everything, like where do I get a business license, and how do I set up my books, and what sort of technology do I need in my office. And it turned out that the number one question that they had was, how do I get clients?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I realized that that was the overwhelming need that all of these people had. And because I had the scientific training and the computer programmer training in my past, I said, okay, how can we make this a system that's based on science? Because these people don't have any sort of system. They're just sort of doing things at random. The metaphor we use in English a lot is throwing darts at the dartboard, right? That's what they're doing to try to get clients. They're just randomly throwing darts and hoping that some of them land in the right place. And that's no way to go about anything. You need to have some sort of systematic way of doing it. So I sat down and started to look at what were successful people doing. And
Okay.
I determined that the successful people were all doing a certain set of things, and they weren't the same thing for every person.
Actions,
But
daily and weekly.
actions. It was a limited universe of things that could be done. And that the thing that the successful people had in common was the unsuccessful, with the that had in common that the unsuccessful people did not have, is they had come up with some sort of routine, things that they did all of the time. Maybe it was that they chose to do public speaking in their local community, and that was what really worked for them. Or maybe they wrote articles for newspapers and magazines and journals. Or maybe it was that they were just really, really good on the telephone and they made a lot of phone calls. But there was something that they were good at and that they did over and over that paid off for them. And that was when it came to me that I could put all of those things together into a system.
So you like did a research or what do these small business owners or self-employed professionals do, and decided to put these things in the Get the Clients system, if I understood it well. Yeah?
Yes, you did. That's exactly right.
You probably won't believe me, so I need to show you. I found a few days ago something I did 6 years ago. Do you recognize this?
I do.
I
You're
bought,
holding up
yeah,
the
I
action
bought a
plan
copy.
menu.
Yeah, I bought a copy of your book on a Kindle.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't back in 2014, and I couldn't make a screenshot. I couldn't do a printing, you know. So I took the photos here and put it here, and I'm having this. I'm holding this for like 6-7 years now.
That's wonderful.
And going through these materials, CJ, it looks like a big job for someone who is starting as a coach or as a trainer. It's I think this person needs such a commitment, such a drive, such a persistency to become good at what I do as a coach. Because what I'm trying to explain to my clients often is that your education, the stuff you're teaching people, is the least important. The most important thing is how do you get clients, and how do you find this? How do you find a profitable niche? How to earn money? Because one-on-one training, if you don't put a price well, you're going to lose money. And most of my clients we're in Croatia. Our market, our coaching market, and training market is nowhere as big as yours, and there is no competition. But no competition doesn't mean no good opportunities for the person that are interested in coaching business, if you understand me.
I
So
do.
I don't believe that like anyone I know that went through some kind of coaching program would be able to go through your action plan, because I'm definitely convinced it gives the results in like few weeks. Oh, this is so much work, CJ.
So that's one of the things that I tried to do with this system, was to make it simpler for
Yeah.
people, as simple as possible. So first of all, to say, okay, you only need to do 10 things.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the core elements of the system. You don't need to do 50 things or even 30 things. You only need to do 10 things.
Mm-hmm.
And then to make it even easier than that, to take people through a diagnostic process. You hear my scientific language,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Take people through a diagnostic process so they can determine which 10 things
mm-hmm.
make the most sense, and not just which 10 things are most likely to pay off for them and produce results, but which 10 things will they actually do. Because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you have the greatest plan in the world if you don't execute the plan.
Yeah.
And there's no one looking over your shoulder, no boss saying, do these things every day. No, it's
Mm-hmm.
just you. You have to get yourself to do it. And that means there has to be some sort of connection that you feel personally with this plan in
Mm-hmm.
order for it to actually happen, and
Yeah.
not just be something that you write once and then put in a drawer and never look at again.
Yeah, I understand. Um, you know, I have. I'll take a look at this one more time. You've mentioned that you've diagnosed that there were professionals that did cold calling. There were professionals that did writing or newsletter or e-zines or public speaking, and most of the people don't feel confident enough to do cold calling. Is your advice that they should try and practice the cold calling, or should they invest their energy in something they feel more like confident, like public speaking, or probably writing is more easy than public speaking? So do they need to develop most of those skills, or can they just be like the professional in one, like the master of cold calling or the master of presentations? But of course, if I'm trying to get my public speaking engagements, I need also to do a cold call and call the institution to offer my services.
So what I tell people is, of those 10 things that you choose, one of them should be hard because you need to stretch
Mhm.
yourself.
Mhm.
But one of them gets to be really, really easy. And the rest should be somewhere in between, so that you have a range of things, so that yes, you are trying to stretch yourself a little bit all the time. But if you put down a list of 10 things, all of which are hard, again, you won't do them. You'll stop.
Mhm.
You'll do it for 3 days and then say, oh, this is too hard, and you'll walk away.
Mhm.
So you need to also give yourself a range of things that are possible for you. Cold calling is something that some people are very good at and very
Mhm.
comfortable with, and other people hate,
Yeah.
and they're bad at it, and they may never get good at it.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely okay, because you can still build a very successful business without ever once having to make a cold call.
Mhm.
And many, many people do exactly that thing.
Mhm.
So you can let go of the ones that you're never going to be good at and make you crazy and fearful,
Mhm.
and instead do the things that are more natural and comfortable for
Yeah.
you, and you can still get clients.
Hmm. You know, here in Croatia, and I would say in the region, people still have this perception that being a coach is such a glamorous job, and and you can do this coaching from anywhere. You can go to Bahamas and do a little Skyping call and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? And I would suggest anyone who believes that being a coach is glamorous, is a glamorous job or a glamorous lifestyle, should read your book. Get clients now, because it's, from my angle, when I read your book, it was like, it's one of the hardest job ever if I follow your advice completely, you know. So what I wanted to ask you, if we could like do this um, like coaching. I have these clients that are like coaches, and I need to change their belief system, and you're the perfect person to do so. So I believe that they should stop reading the books on the topic of coaching, and they should start reading the books on the sales and marketing and filling everything that could help them fill their pipeline. So if I'm a new coach, like I just finished my education for a coach, what would be the first few things that I need to do tomorrow when I wake up?
So the first thing you need to do is recognize that your clients are not going to come from strangers. They're going to come from people who you already know or people who you get to know. And
Mm-hmm.
that is universally true for all of the coaches that I know, that their first round of clients came from people who they already knew or people who they got to know. So the first thing you need to do is look at the list of, well, who do I know? Who would I be comfortable in reaching out to and saying, hi, we know each other, and now I'm doing this coaching thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd love to tell you about what I'm doing and the kinds of clients that I'm looking for, and see if maybe you have some suggestions for me. And what can I do for you? And how could I be helpful to you in your life
Mm-hmm.
right now?
So should I do it for free? Like, I've read this sentence that I totally agree on, that confidence is competence, you know? So
Hmm.
we need a bit of experience to feel more competent and confident. Should I do like first 5 or 10 or 15 clients for free, or like the first 5 sessions for free, or
I
half
have
a
a
price, or
different
yeah?
I have a different philosophy about that than many people. I know that many of the coaching schools, for example, will tell you, don't worry about collecting money, just go out and coach as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually don't believe that,
Mm-hmm.
because I think for far too many coaches, the stumbling block is actually around asking for money and valuing your work.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, free coaching has no value.
Mm-hmm.
If you're coaching someone and they're not paying you anything for that, they're not investing in it, they're not valuing what you do for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not taking it seriously. They're
Yeah,
not
I
acting
agree.
on it. They've got no commitment. Why should they? It's not real. It's just like coaching a fellow student in school.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want experience doing that, great, coach your fellow students.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if what you want to do is get to feel what it's like to actually coach real clients, then those clients need to be paying you something. It could be a small amount, it could be a barter situation. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
different things it could be, but
Mm-hmm.
the client needs to invest something in order for the coaching to work. I find that free clients, they don't even show up for their sessions a lot of the time. They don't
Mm-hmm.
take it seriously.
Yeah,
And
I
if you have to
totally agree with
talk
you.
them into it,
Yeah,
then forget it. You
yeah.
want somebody who's eager for it, who needs it, who wants it enough that they're willing to invest something in
Mm-hmm.
it. That's a real client. That's where you get true
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Yeah. So the first thing is the first thing I need to put my efforts in is making a list of the people I already know and approach them like on telephone or in live events and try to find their needs and offer some of my services, or just explain them what I do and how do I ask them if they want to be my client. So the toughest thing is to get your first client, right? Once you have a system, you don't need the get client. Get clients now system is always good. It can get you to the next level. But the first client or the first 5 clients, they're the most critical because of your
It
self-confidence,
is.
your confidence. To build the confidence, you need to get them fast.
The first 5 clients are most definitely the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, if the person you're in conversation with asks questions that makes it sound like they themselves are a candidate, then you can ask them if they'd like to become your client. But if they don't ask those kinds of questions, if they don't show that kind of interest, then what you're asking them for is to refer you
Yeah, and
to
that's like
clients.
non-invasive approach. So I'm like, I started my business. I'm coaching these types of clients, and if no one is interested, I can ask for a referral. Would you know anyone who would be interested in like service like this or like the knowledge I have? So did you have
Right.
experiences at the beginning when you try
Oh,
to
sure.
yeah,
Oh, sure. Because
within the
you'll
people you know?
encounter people who say to you, "You're doing what now?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have any background in that. What
Mm-hmm.
makes you think you can do that?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that can be very, but those people are just a minor percentage. Most of the people in your life, most of the people who know you will be willing to be helpful. They'll say, "Oh, how exciting. I'm so happy for you. How can I be of service?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Most people will react in that way. So the 1 or 2 people that say to you, "You're doing what? You're not qualified
Mm-hmm.
for that."
Mm.
Forget them.
Okay, CJ. So how do I approach this? Do I go to the live events and networking events? Do I just take a phone and contact anybody in my phone list and tell them what I do, asking for a referral eventually? Isn't that too aggressive if I do that?
It is if what you're doing is saying, "Give me the contents of your phone book,"
Okay,
right? If you're saying like,
with that tonality, yeah.
yeah. And I think most of us have had the experience of dealing with somebody who sells insurance or some other financial services very aggressively, asking you for the names and numbers of your friends who they can call
Hmm.
because they're trained to do that. And that's crazy. No, that's not what you're doing. What you're doing is you're saying, "I have this thing that's valuable that helps people. I want to help more people. You probably know people who might like to be helped in this way. And as you encounter people like that in your life, I'd like you to think of me and this thing that I can do for them."
Hmm. 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 So.
And sometimes in response to that, someone will say, "Oh, you're doing," as an example, "career coaching. I have a friend who's looking to make a change in his career right now. Could I have that person call you?"
Yeah.
That's the ideal
Yeah.
situation, is
Yeah.
when they do that. More often they'll say, "Okay, great. I'm glad to know that you're doing this thing. I hope you're really happy with it." And then next week, a friend of theirs says, "I'm looking for a new job and I'm really struggling." And they have the light bulb go on in their head and they say, "Oh, this friend of mine is doing career coaching. You should give him a call. Maybe he can
Hmm.
help you."
Hmm. 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 And I think that this should become a routine, right? To call your contacts
Yes.
and just follow up on them. Okay. So what would be your like second advice? Okay, on Monday I'm calling all of my contacts, old and new, and just making a conversation and making them feel comfortable, and maybe I'm giving the referrals to them. in
If
order
possible,
to, yeah, if
sure.
possible. And just follow up. Okay, besides these telephone calls, what would be your second advice? What can I do to become a better coach, to be better professional, and earn more money and help more people?
And help more people. That's
Yeah.
right. Well, first of all, it's probably not going to take you just Monday. It's probably going to take you a good couple of weeks to get through your list of contacts, because most of us don't think about how many people we actually know. You probably already know 200, 300 people that you could reach out to in that way. And what you might do is you might send them an email, and then 2 or 3 days later follow that up with a phone call. And it's going to take you a while to get in touch with everybody. And then some of those people are going to say, oh, you should call my friend so-and-so, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there'll be more to it than that. But you spend a couple of weeks doing that, let's say. Now, here's where it comes to the place where you get to start choosing which of the different avenues for getting clients you're going to pursue. If you're going to pursue direct contact and follow-up as being your method of getting clients, then you need to start looking at, what am I going to do to start building my network of contacts and building a mailing list, a call list that I can continuously follow up with.
Okay.
If you're going to use networking and referral building as your avenue, then you might look at, okay, I've called the 200, 300 people who I know. How do I start expanding that network of possible referral sources? And on down the list to, if you're going to use public speaking, it's one avenue. If you're going to use writing, it's another avenue.
Okay, but in the process, would you suggest I have, for example, a virtual assistant, or should I do it by myself to become?
Yes.
Yeah. Can I have a virtual assistant? Is it okay? It is.
Absolutely.
Okay. 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 One of the things that, okay, let's say the first clients can come from the area of referral and the people we know. I was really a fan of the building a referral system back then, and that was the reason why I bought your book and read your book. And I've contacted Michael Mayer, if you know him, Bob Burke, Go Giver, and Michael Port. You know, all these books were on my list, and I was fanatical about making a referral system. And the things I've designed my referral system, it went really well. And where I failed was creating referral alliances. When I started looking at referral partners. So can you explain us, CJ, what is a referral partner? And how do you approach a referral partner? And who is definitely not your referral partner?
Great. So that is one of the best avenues that I do recommend to new coaches, is to think about going in that networking and referral building direction and looking at building up a referral network. And that is one of the ways that I built my own coaching practice in the beginning. So the first thing you have to do is look at, what is my niche as a coach? Who is my target market? What is my specialty? And some target markets and some specialties really lend themselves to building a referral network more than others. The more specific you are, the easier it's going to be.
Yeah, you're more referable. Yeah.
You're more referable, exactly. If you say, well, I'm a life coach and I specialize in success and fulfillment, that's tricky.
Generic,
right? But if you say, I am a business coach and I specialize in self-employed professionals, now there's something that we can work with. So then you look at, okay, if I need to have self-employed professionals referred to me, who is in a position to refer me self-employed professionals? Let's think about it. Who talks to self-employed professionals all the time? Well, graphic designers and web designers, they talk to them all the time. Accountants and bookkeepers, they talk to them. I bet that psychotherapists talk to
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I bet that people who run entrepreneurship centers and small business development centers talk to those people. And so you think your way through that. Who's in touch with these kinds of people all the time? And then you go back to your list and you say, okay, so I think I need to talk to more graphic designers. How many graphic designers are there on my list of contacts? Wow, none.
Mm-hmm.
I need to know some graphic designers. So how can you get to know graphic designers? Okay, you've got that list of 200, 300 people who you've just talked to, right?
Yeah.
Pick up the phone, send an email
Yeah.
to person number one. Hey, we talked a couple of weeks ago, and I've realized I need to be in touch with more graphic designers. Who's your graphic designer? What graphic designers do you know? Could you introduce me? And that's
Yeah.
all you're asking for. You're not saying, sell them something. You're just saying, I want to know them.
Yeah.
And then you contact that graphic designer and you say, hi, we were introduced by so-and-so, spoke highly of your work or whatever that person said. And I think we might be able to help each other get clients. I talk to people who need graphic designers. You as a graphic designer, I bet, talk to people who need me. Let's
Mm-hmm.
find out more about each other and see if maybe we could help each other get more business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And almost any professional will be open to
Yeah.
that conversation.
Yeah, almost. I'm sure you had
Almost.
I'm sure you had negative experiences. I had because people here in Croatia, I don't believe they even heard of strategic alliances and referral partnership. So, you mentioned how to approach them. It seems like a lot easier way to get. I wasn't persistent enough. To be honest, I wasn't persistent enough in finding referral partners. It sounds like a less aggressive way to get more referrals than to ask the contacts you already have. To can I build my business on I'm not like suggesting that I won't take referrals from individual clients or individual people that I know, but can I put in my mind I'm going to build my business on referral alliances? And do you know an example of someone who did?
Sure, absolutely. I picked the graphic designer example,
Mm-hmm.
but one of my very, very first referral partners was my own graphic designer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly how she built her business, was getting to know other people who served her target market.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we were ideal for each other because she had that mindset also
Yeah.
of let's all help each other be more successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so she set about looking for people who also had contact with her target market, small business owners, and
Yeah.
ended up with referral alliances with all of these people who were in allied but not competitive businesses.
Yeah.
Photographers, copywriters,
Mm-hmm.
art directors,
Yeah.
entrepreneurship center staff, people who taught small business.
Mm-hmm.
The very people who would be asked by someone, hey, I need a graphic designer. Can you refer somebody?
Yeah. Would you suggest, CJ, that I contact, for example, do I always ask for introduction from my contact, or can I go directly if I believe that this person or this small business is compatible with, complementary with my type of clients?
Absolutely, you can approach someone cold, but what I suggest is always trying to warm up the connection if you can.
Yeah.
So let's say you don't have an introduction. Can you get to that person through social media, for example? So just the same sort of conversation that I suggested you could have with an individual person, you can also have on social media. You can post on social media, hi, I'm interested in getting to know more graphic designers. Who do you use? Who do you know? Who would you suggest? And people on Facebook, people on LinkedIn, people on Twitter will respond to a question like that, and they will tell you. So there you go. Now you've got a warm contact. So-and-so suggested you.
Yeah.
Or they could be people who are members of the same organization as you.
Mhm.
So let's say it's a local chamber of commerce or
Yeah.
other business organization, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Hi, we're fellow members of the such and such association.
mhm.
And so therefore I thought maybe we could help each other. Again, it's a warmer connection than just completely a stab in the dark of somebody who you looked up on Google. But
Mhm.
even if that's it, even if it's somebody you looked up on Google, look for how you can warm up the connection. You
Okay.
go to somebody's website and you see, oh, look, this person went to such and such school. I
Yeah.
went to that school. Now
Mhm.
we're fellow students.
Yes.
Or
And
this people spoke for the such and such organization. I spoke for them once.
mhm. You
And
know,
it may be a tenuous connection. It's
mhm.
still a connection.
Definitely, and I have like a great example. Surove Strasti has more than 200 episodes, you know, and I got a feedback
Uh-huh.
of listeners who approached who approached our guest on the podcast, and in the introduction they said, "I've listened to your episode. I was delighted when you said this and that made the connection." So if you invest
Absolutely.
your time in research, you don't necessarily need to have someone to make the introduction, right?
No, as long as you have something you know about that person.
Yeah.
If I get a blind email, and I get way too many of these on LinkedIn in particular, from
Hmm.
someone who clearly knows nothing about me,
Hmm.
my finger is on the delete button. That's just gone. I don't even bother with that.
Yeah.
But if I get an email from somebody who I don't know and they say to me, hey, I read your last newsletter
Yeah.
article and you said that interesting thing about such and such, now you've got my attention.
Yes. And great example. Great. Great. CJ, how much things changed since the social media in terms of filling your pipeline?
For some people, they've changed a lot, and for others, they haven't changed at all.
Hmm.
One of the things I tell people is that social media is a nice to have, but it is not a necessity. You don't have to be on social media at all, and you can still be successful as a self-employed professional because all of the old things still work.
Hmm.
Email still works. The phone still works.
Networking
Live
events.
networking events
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
work. Public speaking still works. All of those things work without social media.
Hmm.
And if you want to use social media, be aware of how you're using it. It's not an advertising medium. It's not a
Definitely.
place where you just go and post come-ons to whatever it is that you do. If you
Yeah.
use it that way, you will fail completely. But if you use it as a connection medium,
Mhm.
it can be very, very powerful for connecting to people that otherwise you would never know, and for building up relationships, and
And
for
doing your research. Yeah.
research,
Yeah.
yeah, for serving as a publicity, not advertising, but a
Hmm.
publicity medium for
Yes.
you. Let's
And
say you're a blogger, as I am. You can get much wider audiences for your blog posts by promoting your blog posts, not your services, but your
mhm.
blog posts on social media. And then people come to them and they read them and they get to know you and trust you. And eventually they become people who want to do business with you.
Yeah. Um, what? How long is the customer journey in your case? For example, if someone follows you on social media or reads your articles, do you have like the information? How long is like the approximate time when they first make a contact with you?
Anywhere from 2 minutes to 20 years.
Really, 20 years, 2 minutes, 20.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously, sometimes it will be somebody who they were just Googling around
Hmm.
and they ran into one of my blog posts and they read it and they said, oh, you're the one I want to do business with. Other times it'll be somebody who bought the first edition of Get Clients Now in 1999 and
Yeah.
has been on my mailing list forever
Mm-hmm.
and has never done business with me, who will one day write me an email out of the blue and say, you know, I've been reading your stuff for 20 years, but I think you might be able to help me with my current problem.
Yeah. Good
So
answer.
there's just no prediction. And
Yeah.
that's why I have to come back to it again.
Mm-hmm.
Persistence and consistency.
Yeah, and that's your
I
tagline.
do
That's your
still have
brand.
my mailing list from
Yeah.
20 years ago, right? I
Uh-huh.
have people who signed up for my mailing list in 1999 that are still on my mailing list because I
Wow.
send them something at least every single month and
Mm-hmm.
have for all those years.
Mm-hmm. Super. CJ, I have only one question if you have time. Your book is, I already mentioned it, your book is like the extremely actionable. I think I've never read a book that demands you take so much action. How much do things change when you're a book author?
Dramatically.
Mhm. Because
Dramatically.
one thing I'm trying to explain to, I'm also a book author, but one thing I try to explain my clients is that you won't earn a lot of money on your book. You won't get rich by writing books, but
Yeah.
what you'll get recognition. You'll get, you're sending your message that you did something that's like a physical product, that you put your time knowing you won't earn a lot of money, and it's like the factor of trust. So how much does thing change? So if you ask me, that is the only value of writing a book and investing months of your time to write a book. But it definitely can help in the sales process and in the marketing process.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you write the right book at the right time and you end up with a bestseller like Get Clients Now
Mm-hmm.
and have the opportunity to put out options. So Get Clients Now has been rewritten 3 times, right? So it's always up to date because I keep writing new editions and people keep buying them, which means that royalties keep coming into my bank account, which is wonderful. And that's not why I wrote it. I wrote Get Clients Now to be my business card.
Yes.
Instead
Thank
of
you
me
very
handing
much, CJ.
you a little square of
Yeah.
cardboard, instead, I give you my book, you give me a $20 bill because things that are free have no value. You've got to pay something for it. Here you go. And if you use that book, you're going to want to work with me. You're going to want to buy more things from me. You're going to tell other people about me.
Definitely.
And if we do work together, you're going to pay me 2, 5, 10 times what you would have paid me if I had not written that book. And as a book author, you're going to be invited to speak. As a non-book author, you have to work to get speaking engagements. But if you write a book, everybody wants you as a
Yeah.
speaker. Look, here I am doing a podcast in Croatia, right? Would that happen if I had not written a book? Of course not.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. CJ, I'm so glad you were a guest on Surove Strasti podcast. You're such an inspiration, and I really mean it. I really mean it. I thought
Thank you.
a few days ago that you were just a fantastic professional and a person who helps coaches and consultants. But when I went deeper and went through your bio and heard your story, I'm really, really, really happy you were a guest on Surove Strasti. Thank you very much for your time, CJ.
Thank you, Saše, and thank you again for the invitation.
Thank you. See you, CJ.
Okay, bye-bye.